409 Fitness on 12 News, sponsored by Heights Dermatology.
409 Fitness here at World Gym with Derek Moore, and today we're actually going to talk about, he's going to go in depth about how hormones can actually be impacted, from working out and from what we actually put into our body with our nutrition. So Derek, I know you have 10 points. You said we're going to split this up into 5 and 5 so you can go in depth about it, just because there's so much that you can talk about with it.
Yes, ma'am. It typically starts with, hormone regulation, and that starts with a good high protein diet. Protein is extremely essential, and you want to pay attention to your essentials when you're trying to remain in homeostasis, which is complete balance. So for instance, if you're getting up on your day-to-day and you're exerting X amount of energy, say these energies are consisting of working out, moving body weight, moving mass, you're going to be breaking down muscle fibers. So when those fibers are broke down, the only way they can recover is with protein and protein synthesis, which in return help regulate hormones. So a good example would be if I'm starving all day, which I touched on last week, but if I'm starving, my body's not going to regulate hormones. I don't have anything in it to make it vital. So I tell people you need to make sure you have the right amount of macros, and we're gonna start with protein. So if I am 200 pounds, then I need at least half a gram of protein or a gram of protein to match every pound I weigh. And that's just to maintain, like I said, homeostasis, which is just balance. So if someone's looking to regulate good hormonal control, focusing on, let's say, estrogen and testosterone at this point, you most definitely want to make sure that you have the right amount of protein in your body to create protein synthesis, the peptides and the amino acids. You want to make sure all this is working together. That way the body can stay protected. And the reason why we want protein is we don't want to tear muscles. We don't want to tear fibers. We don't want to, risk our meniscus tearing and different things like that come from being underfed.
And so when your hormones are imbalanced, so what are some things that you could kind of feel? Is that one reason why people may feel tired or even more hungry when they've just eaten?
Most definitely. The hormones are going to regulate mood as well as letting the body know it's full. So if you're like starving all day or not putting the right nutrition in at the right times, the body's kind of off. It can't really determine what's going on. And typically what happens is you're gonna be tired first. No energy, mental cognition will fail. You're just not sharp. You kind of tell in the skin, your body starts to feel kind of soft. Things that most people are not paying attention to, you could actually pay attention to every day and really be mindful, hey, it's time to eat. Oh, it's time for some protein. Oh, I've exerted and lifted and did this today. I need to make sure I'm following up with the right, amount of protein. And that's a simple start. So when people are getting up, going about their day, they need to be focused on macros. And that would be half a gram of protein or half a gram of protein to a gram of protein per body weight. And that's a really easy way to calibrate it. So if someone's 150 pounds, 160 pounds, they need at least half of that for protein and synthesis, or they need to match it. They need the right amount, which would be 150.
So now we just talked about the protein, but also when, like you said, you need that protein because you've just been working out. Mm-hmm. And so how does that impact your hormone?
Well, the second thing we will most definitely want to focus on is having a regular exercise regimen. A lot of people are not mindful of the fact that we actually need good nutrition just on a day-to-day life. It's not necessarily always about exercising. So the first point I want to make is that we just need to make sure that we're eating the right amount of protein for our body weight, making sure we have a decent body weight, and eating according to how much we weigh. When it comes down to regular exercise, it's important in regulating hormones because the body is looking for oxygen-rich blood. It's similar to breathing in the same kind of air over and over again. You're getting the same frequency over and over again. You kind of want to liven that up a little bit and get the heart rate up, get the blood flowing, and when that happens, that does regulate hormones. Now, depending on your VO2 max, which is your skill set, you may not be able to go in the gym and just do a ton of working out. You have to most definitely build up to it. But if you start building up to it, staying consistent, then you will start to regulate better hormone control. So the thing I hear a lot when I'm dealing with my clients after they've been working out a couple weeks is, Derek, my energy is so much better. My mood is so much better. Well, that's because they've regulated the hormones from, sitting down doing absolutely nothing the majority of the time to actually like getting a little body chemistry going, body starting to recognize what's going on, starting to see, kind of where it's lacking or where it's not. And that actually, sends hormones to where it needs to go. Just like the protein. The protein's there to repair, the hormones there to regulate, get the mood, keep your mental cognition going. So you most definitely want to exercise as much as possible. But in a safe range. You know, if you haven't been doing anything, you can't go in the gym and just try to build a city in a day. But you most definitely can start to regulate your hormones with how consistent you are in the gym. And I tell a lot of people, when you do want to start your exercise regimen, if you don't want to go right into lifting, you should just wake up and start walking on awakening. A good meditation, a good walk, that helps to burn off the cortisol from the night before, which helps you go into burning fat faster. So it's kind of like a little hack with how people can go into glycogen storages by doing their workout on awakening, and that's great for the hormones, great for the brain.
Yeah, I definitely, walking, I personally, I mean, not every day has to be a gym day, of course, but on my off days, or the one that I have, it's definitely like an active off day where I like to walk, or, you know, I have this sign in my room that says, "Don't be moody, shake your booty." And so usually I just, you know, dancing also is a, you know, fun thing. Maybe I just turn on some music and I honestly just, I'll start moving with my dogs because it's fun. So it's just, moving is probably the biggest part.
It's absolutely important for brain chemistry. Moving, creating, activating all these different functions that we have going on. So just walking, like you said, just like not necessarily a work day, but just kind of staying in the mix, keeping the body flowing. A body that's in motion stays in motion. A body that's stagnant, it takes a long time to get that body back up going, right? So I think if someone's exercising on a consistent basis, good for regulating your hormones, they'll feel amazing.
All right, so we talked about protein, we talked about exercise, but now you want to get into probably the topic most people don't like to talk about because it has to do with the way they look. And it talks about weight, which is what most people come, you know, to the gym to try and fix or try to improve. And so when we are maybe underweight or when we are overweight, you know, how does that impact our hormones?
And I'm glad the way you worded that, if you're underweight or overweight, because you can kind of be a little bit of both. First of all, I'll tell anybody who's you know, underweight or overweight, don't stop, keep going, keep pursuing what you're trying to do. It will work. Being consistent in the gym will help regulate all of that. But for instance, if someone's overweight, they're not actually in the right body mass index. Say for instance, they're 5'2", 5'3", but they're carrying around a whole lot of body fat. That will slow down their hormonal regulation. If you kind of look at it, the science behind it, they're kind of sluggish. They haven't put their body in a healthy position to regulate blood flow, oxygen to the brain. They actually have a frame, it's about 5'2", 5'3", but they're carrying around like a whole lot of excess body weight, and that just tears their adrenals up, puts the thyroid through so much function, and this is overexerting the hormonal system because the hormonal system is trying to stay regulated to control that body weight. So having a nice moderate weight for your body height is always good. So if someone's looking to be 5'2", 5'2", 5'3", there's something called body mass index. BMI is the acronym for that, and that's for them to have the right type of fat, muscle mass, and lean tissue according to their height. So I'm 6 foot, my BMI would normally be about 181. Now, depending on if that's a lot of body fat or muscle tissue is going to determine the regulation of the hormone control. So if I'm 6 foot and let's say I'm, you know, 30 to 40% body fat, then I'm kind of like in a little bit of trouble. I need to most definitely get the body fat down a little bit to help regulate hormones in other ways. So a person who's underweight, if they're underweight, typically they're not taking in enough nutrition. We have something that's called ATP. ATP is available in all of us. We get it from glucose. But when you put ATP in your body, you have to be able to, you know, subscribe to it. You have to be able to make it available. And the way you make it available is through great, you know, good weight, good diet, and good exercise regimen. So if someone's overweight, on a smaller frame, they have all this body mass that they're carrying now, they can't really get in the mode. They can't really get going. So what happens is the ATP is not available to them. They're taking the food in, but the body's just storing it all because they cannot access that ATP. And so what you need to do is start some type of exercise regimen. This in return will help the VO2 max, which is oxygen to muscle over stress, become a little bit more regulated. The body's getting used to doing something. Now the body has a more available ATP. It can get to the ATP, which in return is one of your main energy sources, which in return will help you burn excess body fat. We have to regulate it. You have to get it activated first. So that's why the regulation of hormones is so important, because without the regulation of hormones, the body, the receptors in the brain, they're not, you know, recognizing the signals. So the body's not gonna do what you want it to do. So when people come in, they say, I wanna lose weight. I've been coming to the gym every day. I've been walking, I've been doing this. And my first question is, how's your diet? How are you eating? Are you feeding the system? Are you able to activate ATP? Are you actually able to crank up a sweat? And some people don't, because they went through so long without activating these systems that the body has to kind of remember again. So maintaining a good weight is a good way to stay in the game. It's a good way to not have to work so hard to get back in the game. And it's a good way to keep the hormones regulated for long lasting. I like to talk about marginal decade. What are we looking to do in the last 10 years? Well, if you're not regulating the last 10 years of life, you're not regulating hormones now, the last 10 years are gonna get kind of hard. Lower back pain, you won't have as much calcium in the bones, bone density is failing, and all of this is because you're not maintaining a proper weight, and you're not maintaining a consistent exercise program, and you're not maintaining a good protein intake.
You said so many things that actually go into hormone regulation that maybe we wouldn't think about before, but even nowadays coming more popular as more research is being done about it. It's all about the gut. It's what goes in the gut, and it's what you put in your stomach. And so what can you tell us about that?
I mean, the term "you are what you eat," you are what you eat. What we have in our gut is called microbiome, which is brain matter in the gut. So literally, when you put something in your stomach, your body's gonna process that like the brain's thinking, and it's kind of funny, but you are what you eat. So I tell a lot of people that you want to take something like a probiotic, or a digestive enzyme, something to help you kind of break down the foods. If you don't have good hormone regulation, what happens is that when you start to ingest the food and eat, the food is just sitting there. The body needs good hormones regulated to help break down food. That's your thyroid. Your thyroid's gonna receive a signal that says, hey, we need to do this. We need to crank the metabolism up to break it down. So if I put, hate to make sugar the enemy, but we know it is, if I put a pound of sugar, a whole bunch of excess sugar in my body, my gut bacteria doesn't recognize that as something good. Initially, my hormones are gonna be off. Super huge spikes of estrogen, lower amounts of testosterone put in my body. I actually, at this point, probably won't even have any free testosterone. It's normally what most males have to do like their day-to-day jobs and things like that. So if you're overloading the gut with sugar, overloading the gut with, and I'm focusing on sugar, but it's so many other things we
You
can
talk about me. We'll use my example here. So I personally have a big obsession, and we've talked about it before, hot Cheetos. Hot Cheetos are my go-to snack. I love them, so I guess if you are what you eat, I am a hot Cheeto.
Hot Cheeto.
So when we're talking about gut health, that's probably one of the worst things.
Well, it is, but so for instance, I like cookies. If I have a cookie and I'm eating one, the very next day I can instantly feel the difference in my mental cognition. And you're wondering like, well, I ate the cookie. Well, why is that bothering me mentally? Well, the sugar, it's throwing off my balance. It's throwing off my hormones. So based off biochemical individuality, we all kind of have certain food groups that we can eat that we may digest better than others. And one of the enemies to me is sugar. So if I have a cookie or something really sweet, the very next day, I'm not functioning as well. So if you look at people throughout the time, they have these horrible days. They're just down, they're moody. Nothing really changed about their lives. Their lives seem to be pretty consistent and structured, but it's their diet. So their diet is so jacked up, it's suppressing their hormone regulation, and they're not even happy about life in general. And so people are not mindful how foods can affect these things. Some sugars have the same effect on your brain and gut that alcohol has. So it's most definitely something you want to be mindful of, because a lot of people are eating sugar treats, thinking these things are like really good, happy time, playtime, but these things are really detrimental to their overall well-being, especially the way they function and think. Putting these things in your gut will slow down thyroid function, will slow down estrogen production. Well, it actually will spike the estrogen out of this world. It will slow down testosterone reduction. And then the body is not even able to be as lively as it would normally be to get these things out of the body. So I would tell anyone, they ingest a lot of sugar or really hard to digest things, you might want to hurry up and get that out your body before you start eating again, because you're just loading more junk on top of junk that has to be processed. And that's not really good on the gut.
We're talking about sugar, and I think a lot of people, when you say sugar, you talked about cookies. People think of cake, they think about candy, chocolates, all that good stuff. What they actually don't realize is, when you go in the morning and let's say you go get your coffee, you go to the coffee shop, you go get your coffee. Well, you're not only getting coffee in that, depending on the milk, you're getting, milk fat, you're getting milk sugar from the milk, but also they put syrups depending on which one you get. Yeah. So the amount of sugar actually in like your morning coffee could be up to what a piece of cake is actually.
Yeah, and it could actually be more. And I'm so glad you touched on that, because literally when I'm making my coffee every morning, and I could stand next to people, you can see them loading up this coffee with sugar and creamer. It's like candy coffee, and I get it. I understand they want it for the flavor and taste, but the coffee's there just really to heighten you, to get you up. The sugar is going to bring you up, then bring you back down. So it's kind of like counterintuitive. I just would tell people, for the most part, just stay away from sugar. There's nothing really good about it, but maybe the first 10 to 15 minutes of it. Then after that, you're gonna literally crash. And then if you pay attention to how jacked up your next day may be, it may make you want to stay away from sugar all, for good.
Yeah, and then your gut will actually be appreciative.
Yeah, it will, and because too much sugar in the gut is gonna cause for the intestines to be inflamed. People not understanding, they're saying, like, I don't even eat that much. Why is my belly poking out? So it's inflamed. Your gut line is inflamed from all the sugar that you're taking in. It's just really not that good for you at all.
We already got into it a little bit, but talking about sugar, so really, how does that impact our body? Just, that sugar that we do intake every morning or every night after, we do.
Well, we know sugar is most definitely responsible for people becoming diabetic. And that's normally broken down based off of the person's biochemical individuality, their metabolism, how they're set up. So some of us just process it better and quicker than others, and some don't. So high sugar in your hormones will make, for instance, I'll use a man for example. A man who eats a lot of sugar, chances is will spike his estrogen levels. In return, it makes him lazy. Like, he doesn't have the same energy that he once would have. And a lot of us think that sugar, well, we know sugar immediately gives us a sense of energy, but what's happening is sugar is releasing dopamine and serotonin in the brain. Sugar is a pleasure food. It's something, as soon as you eat it, you get, it's like instant gratification. Like, this tastes amazing, you feel completely different. That's how much control it has over the brain hormones and brain function. So we know that this leads to people being a diabetic, and the reason why is because their insulin resistance and stimulation is off. So they're taking in way more sugar than they even think they're taking in. I had 2 or 3 bites or 2 or 3 pieces of cake. I mean, that's like a large amount of sugar. And in return, that spikes estrogen, which in return makes you hold water, makes you hold a lot of the bioproducts from the sugar, and that's just overall not healthy at all for a man. And it works both ways with men and women, but we also know that women make estrogen. That's the main hormone that y'all typically make. So even with a lady who's eating a lot of sugar, chances is this can make her very emotional. She can also be very unstable mentally, which means that one minute she's happy, she's interested in this, she's interested in that, and as soon as the sugar crash goes away, then she's also very pessimistic now and not really, thinking the same way. So a lot of people are not going to take that in consideration, how much the sugar is affecting their brain cognition and how they're thinking. And that's because it's affecting the hormones. So if I want to stay, I work out, I'm looking to build muscle, I most definitely can't do that with sugar. Now, you do get an insulin spike from sugar in certain ways, but you would have to know how to manipulate that for it to work for you. And I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, you can build all kind of muscle. You can have a very good way of living, very good wellness, quality of life, with sugar being completely gone, because it also is genetically passed on. So someone who's abusing sugar now, when they get ready to have children, whatever, that they kind of start to create the line for these underlying diseases that don't tend to go away. So sugar's just not good at all for regulating hormonal control, especially, I would like to say, in men. With women, it makes them really soft. And I don't mean soft from an emotional point, just soft as in body mass index.
Right.
And we know that we need muscle tissue to help promote bone density. So we can look at where sugar is impacting the muscle tissue, which is in return going to impact the bone density, which is in return going to impact the brain. So it's 5 steps to, destruction with dealing with sugar.
I know a lot of women, I won't say all women, but a lot of women, a big problem area is their lower belly. And
Right.
I call it my power pouch because, women have that extra fat because it's there to protect the uterus.
Right.
But, a lot of women, that's a problem because they'll go and they'll try to lose as much weight, but then that will still be there. And in terms of sugar, that also makes it really hard for that area of fat to leave, right?
Right, it makes it very hard, and what they should understand is that you can reverse it. You can reverse it through, like we said earlier, having a very consistent workout regimen and also working out the right way, pumping the muscles up the right way to pull in the nutrition, which in return will burn fat. Now, you can't just pick out where you want to burn fat. So of course, I know everyone wants to lose body fat in the tummy area. Well, that's where you're digesting your food. So it's going to be impacted first. And typically once you start to drop body fat, it's impacted, it goes away last. So you should just be mindful that if I'm taking in X amount of sugar per day and I'm looking to work out, to lose body fat, then you have to burn off all the sugar first. Then you have to burn off all the food that you ate on top of the sugar. And once you get that into a fat burning mode, you have to stay there. You can't eat more sugar. So you can't repeat the same behavior expecting, the results to come, because it just won't. Not with sugar anyway, it's just too hard.
And then with sugar, I know, there's different types of sugar. There's the sugar that you can buy in a bag, but then there's also, sugar that comes from fruits. Mm-hmm. And so is that something that, people should consider when they're talking about sugar intake?
Portion control will most definitely be something that you want to have even with fruit, but it's two totally different. That's a more natural sugar that's coming from that fruit, and it's good. It does give you a boost of energy, but you do not have the crash afterwards. It's just natural versus a synthetic form, something that's more like alcohol sugar that they put inside of like different foods to keep them better longer. Those things are just really not good. It's all synthetic. So natural would be fruit-based sugars. The synthetic stuff you most definitely want to stay away from.
Join us for 409 Fitness next week, where Derek will explain 5 more ways to help balance your hormones.